Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking, and as always, great to have you along for another edition of Dream Fights. And we really look forward to this show every week, because this is where we pit great fighters from the past or present against each other. Might necessarily even be perceived as great fighters, just two great matchups that we can all sink our teeth into. And who better to do it with than my co-hosts in this episode, of course, Grant Tassie Brown and Mike Altamura. How are we, boys?
Very good, thanks, Lyndon.
Now,
yeah, I'm great. I'm looking forward to this one. This is one of those rare times where we go way back into the past and match it with present day. So it's going to be an interesting one, and I think create a lot of discussion on social media.
I think it will. It's a really odd one, I must say. But when Tassie first brought it up, but the more I thought about it, look, it's a great fight, and probably goes on the back of probably us the last couple of weeks, sort of going back in time a fair bit. So I love that. We're hopefully introducing a lot of our audience to new fighters out there, and this obviously features one that we should know pretty well if you're an Aussie boxing fan or a Japanese fan, and of course the modern day monster, we'll call him. So Tassie, who have we got this week, mate?
We're going to Japan. We've got the great fight, HARADA versus NAYOA INOUE.
Great fight. I love it. Now, tell us, well, it's probably a silly question, but why this fight?
Well, fighting HARADA was a 2-division champion. Should have been 3-division champion in the was it the 8-division era. Just a legend of Japan, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And the other guy is a current. I still don't know how good he's going to be. In a way, he's destroying everyone on his path. He arguably could be number one pound for pound right now, like he's in the argument. He is a freak of nature. I think he might be already 3-division already. He's just got everything. It's like a little Pacquiao, where Pacquiao is really just demolishing people. He can punch. He's quick. He's in and out with footwork. And, yeah, mate, I think he could be, if anyone's going to take over Harada's name as the greatest Japanese fight ever, it's this guy. So let's put him together.
Yeah, a great pick, as I said, mate. Mike, before I get your comments on it, we've got to go back to last week's episode, which was, of course, the all-Aussie super fight between Lionel Rose and Johnny Famechon. As always, we go to the poll. Now, just from memory, I think I went for Johnny Famechon. You two guys, I think, both went for Lionel Rose. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, well, the fans have spoken, and this is the result. So you guys get the chocolates this week. Lionel Rose, 60% over Johnny Famechon. It was actually quite close. I won't say it was a massively voted on one compared to some of the other fights we've had, obviously, because it's just mainly the Aussies that are voting for it. But in the votes that we had, 60% for Lionel Rose and 40% for Johnny Famechon. So, Mike, probably not a big surprise, or do you think it was?
No, I think that it was that kind of fight. I just think that probably if you looked at it close, you definitely can make a case for both fighters. Tassie and I lean to Lionel for our reasons. The fans slightly agreed with us, so we'll take the W on this one. But both are still absolute legends of Australian boxing and Australian sporting history.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think there's sort of a winner in this. It's just what a great matchup it would have been. And look, we obviously love both guys. And it was a really good choice for that matchup. Let's get into, again, this one. Tassie, you want to start with, hang on, that was the fight, HARADA and INOUE. Let's get on to fighting HARADA, 55-7, 22 KOs. He was the WBA flyweight champion in 1962, WBA bantamweight champion in 65. And I don't know why I've got that twice there. It might have been the WBC as well. I think it might have been. Mike, you can correct me on that, but I've obviously had a typo there.
Yeah, so it was the WBC and also the Ring Magazine.
Was it? Okay.
Bantamweight title he won.
Yeah. So there's his biggest wins there over his career, and 1995 was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So So, Mike, start us on fighting Harada. We all should be familiar with him, of course, because he fought both the champions we just spoke about in Lionel Rose and Johnny Famechon. But, we know him well over here, but how much of a legend was he in Japan?
Well, as you said earlier, I mean, consensus greatest Japanese fighter ever. And or he's still alive, so I should say he isn't an overly big fella. He's just a touch under 5'4" and really a little battering ram. But you look at his career, only 2 stoppage losses, and you can see why, because just a real look at how he's built. He's physically built to absorb a great punch, and just, always kind of in position, strong, really good jab, good fundamentals, but in position to kind of catch and roll and absorb the punches on the inside. He was just a real little pocket rocket, high volume, high work rate, fearless, just everything you love about boxing. You hear of these fighters out of Japan are being kamikaze warriors that are willing to walk through fire. And, Harada was an absolute samurai, but that's not to discount his capabilities. Really skillful, really good at parrying shots. And I think that why we have to respect him is simple, because Eder Joffrey would arguably be a top 5 fighter of all time if you remove the 2 losses to Harada, the only 2 losses of his career. Amazing. He went, was it 72, 2-4? Incredible record. Only 2 losses to Harada. Joffrey was the Floyd Mayweather of that time. He was the absolute best in the weight class, but different style to Floyd, massive puncher, but no one thought that anyone was going to be able to upset that uppercut, and Harada did it twice. So that's why he needs to be respected. Like Tazzy said, multiple division world champion, and we talked about it last week, should have been a 3 division world champ with that bad call against Johnny Famechon in their first bout.
And Tazzy, one thing that really strikes me looking at fighting Harada and looking at a lot of his highlights in other videos is that back in this day, they were obviously 15-round fights, but the work rate of this guy, the only one I can think of in the current day that has just retired that could probably match him was Manny Pacquiao with his work rate. It was unbelievable that he could punch just pretty much non-stop for 15 rounds.
Yeah, I'll probably put Jeff Fennick in there as well.
Oh, Jeff Fennick, yeah.
But, I mean, not many could keep that pressure up or have the fitness to be able to punch like that for 15 rounds. I mean, it's just crazy. But, yeah, he just non-stop. Like Mike said, he's a little battering ram. Always well positioned, and just look at that. Just keep throwing him. Yeah, unbelievable.
Just a little beast, that's for sure. Mike, let's get on to his opponent, and probably needs no introduction to the modern day fan at least. Of course, he goes by the name of NAYOA. NAYOA, I pronounced that right. INOUE, 23-0, 20 knockouts. You can see there a 3-time world champion. Actually skipped over the flyweight division and went straight to bantamweight. Was he light flyweight, super flyweight? Oh, then he went back to bantamweight. Okay, so he's been all. Am I right there, Mike? So super light flyweight.
He went light to super fly. Yeah, he jumped flyweight.
Yeah, so you can see his biggest wins there, all world title wins there. According, of course, in there as well, you can see his 7th round knockout of our man Jason Maloney in 2020. But those 2 wins over Nonito Donaire probably define him the best at this stage of his career, Mike.
Yeah, and I think even one of the victories there that you have highlighted that's a little bit underestimated, even though he was long in the tooth, the way that he absolutely blitzed Omar Narvaez in 2 rounds when nobody else had. He had been a perennial top 3, top 5 guy in that weight class for a decade. And, Inoue just marched through him and disposed of him inside 2 rounds. I think that when you look at what he's been doing to very good fighters, I mean, Jason Maloney did an exceptional job to hang in there. What was it, 7 rounds?
7 rounds.
I know Jose Nieves was able to push him deep in the fight, but when guys go past 3 or 4 rounds, they get out of there bruised and battered. Look at Donaire. I mean, it's not an easy task holding up to him, and I think it's because he's so aggressive minded, but he's such a precise counter puncher too.
Yeah, and Tazzy, it's just amazing to think this guy that at that weight, coming from light flyweight up to bantamweight, is just that punching power that he has. I can't remember another guy that size for so many decades that could come anywhere near this guy in terms of power.
Yeah, mate. Look, I think he's the most explosive fighter since a prime Pacquiao. like since a prime, super featherweight, lightweight Pacquiao. I've never seen anyone that explosive like this guy. In and out with his footwork, like Mike said, counter punches, hits so hard with the body and head. He's just got that X factor, that explosiveness, that timing and that sharpness, pinpoint accuracy. The guy is a monster. Exactly what he is, mate. He's like, and I don't see anyone beating him. And this guy could potentially be. It could potentially be a top 10 of all time. Like, we don't know how good he's going to be. I do not know how good this guy is going to be.
Yeah, Mike, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because apart from Donaire, he hasn't really been tested, has he? I know you said that Jason did a great job lasting 7 rounds because he was just blasting guys out of there left, right and centre before Jason fought him. And I think he did a great job, but it's the way he goes about it. He doesn't just stop these guys. He hurts them and hurts them bad and knocks them out. And as Tazzy said, he absolutely batters them. Have you seen anything like this in this light flyweight to bantamweight division? It's just unheard of.
Not often. Yeah, not often. And that's historically. I mean, even you look at, we just seen before, Jose Payano getting flattened in 1 round. Nobody does that to him. Manuel Rodriguez was a world champion, flattened.
Yeah.
Jamie McDonald, 1 round. These are guys that are either slippery or ordinarily real durable fighters. And he's just walking through them like a hot knife through butter. And what I think is most impressive is that he's doing it in different ways. And we're seeing his whole mix of punches here. He's doing it backing up. He's doing it coming forward. He's doing it with uppercuts. He's doing it with hooks. He's doing it with straight right hands. He's doing it with combination punching. I think he's just such a diverse puncher. Like I said, and I think that what's probably most impressive too is that he's always fighting to a different plan for every opponent. So it's not like there's just predictable patterns that he's going to be bringing that people can figure out and then counter him differently. Look at the rematch with Donaire. It was Inoue who made the adjustment, if anything.
Yeah, just the skill that it goes with. It's not just a puncher and he's not just a boxer. He's the both, which makes him even deadlier. And I'm just probably trying to think off the top of my head. The only one I can probably think of that could, I think, compare to him as 40 years ago or whatever it was Carlos Arate, who would just devastate opponents. I'm just trying to think. There was Wilfredo Gomez, who was a division or so above that. But anyway, I'm sure you, Mike, you can think of someone at some stage. But as I said, I can't think of anyone apart from that. But look, this would be a ripper fight. I might actually kick things off here, guys. I think so. Tazzy, it was you, so you can go last. Mike, you can go next. This is a really tough fight to get my head around because normally you would just think, in a way, no matter who he fights, it's just going to knock them out. But I think Harada's size would be a bit of an issue for Inoue. I think the fact he would bob and weave and come in low would be a little bit hard for Inoue early to get hold of, and the fact the volume of punches. The only reason I probably wouldn't go towards Harada is his lack of power. Yes, he was a little pocket dynamo, threw a lot of punches. I'm not quite sure he had the power to get Inoue's respect and back him up a little bit. And I think he would have his moments earlier in the fight. But I just think him coming in with his style, I can just see Inoue, landing some hard shots at some stage. And at this stage, I haven't seen a better finisher than an Inoue for quite some time. So I think it would be a tough fight, maybe similar to the Donaire fight in a different way. Harada coming at him, throwing lots and lots of punches, being hard to hit. But I just think at some stage, Inoue is going to land one and then finish it off with the next couple. So that's where I see. I think probably maybe a 6th to 7th round KO for Inoue. Having said that, I could almost see the other way. Harada might just smother him for 12 rounds or 15 rounds, whatever it might be. But I'm going to go that way. That I think eventually with the styles, that eventually Inoue lands a couple of bombs and gets him out of there. So for me, Inoue by 6th or 7th round KO. What do you think, Mike?
I think one thing you noted there, I think is really accurate, which is that I think Harada's short squat style will actually hold him in good stead in this fight. So make him a smaller target. Inoue is the kind of fighter that needs a little bit of room and space in order to catch you at the end of his punches. So, I think Harada could have a lot of success. The work rate would definitely be given Inoue a lot of trouble early. But I think what you noted is true. Like, Harada had no problem negating Joffrey, who's one of the biggest punching bantamweights of all time. I just think that Inoue is not just a puncher. I think that he's a little bit more diverse. He can box. Like I said before, he knows how to decoy shots. He knows how to adjust his gas tank. He knows how to pace, use his jabs, set traps. And I just think that little bit of lack of power on Harada's side, that once Inoue starts to get his timing down, he'll gradually take over the fight. But I think that Harada's size will be able to keep him in. He was only stopped twice in 62 fights, having fought at the absolute elite level for the last 40-plus bouts of his career. First time he got stopped was by Jose Medel. He was able to avenge that loss. Second stoppage, of course, was that rematch with Johnny Famagin up at featherweight at the end of his career. Was a bit of an anomaly. I think that Harada would be understanding and aware of what dangers coming his way and will be tucking that chin in, rolling, holding inside, doing everything to protect himself. I just think, in a way, just that touch classier, which, again, it's a big call saying someone's classier than Harada when it comes to Japanese boxing, but that's how good I perceive Inoue to be, and I think he pulls away and probably wins like 10 rounds to 5, something like that.
Okay, so Inoue on points, which takes us to the man who thought of this fight, of course, Grant Tuzzy Brown. Who wins and why?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a competitive fight between two legends, and Harada, comes the fight and applies his pressure style and gives it everything he's got. But I feel that, this Inoue is something really special. And I think that he'll fall a bit short, Harada. I think Inoue will win a well-contested, probably comfortable points decision.
Okay. All right. How does he do it?
No, points decision.
Yeah. Okay. But, I mean...
Comfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
unanimous decision.
All right.
Unanimous decision. I think
Okay.
like Harada will probably start early, but I think Inoue will adapt and is a good counter puncher. He's pinpoint, and I think he might even drop Harada at one stage, but I'll give Harada the respect to go the distance, and I think it's a comfortable decision win for Inoue.
It's an interesting one because, as I said, you can sort of see Inoue, like he's done with so many good fighters, is actually landing a few and ironing Harada as great as he was out. But on the other hand, you can almost see Harada smother him almost like Donaire did in the first fight and take away all that power and overwhelm him with punches. It's a tough one. That's what obviously makes these dream fights so great. But hopefully the Japanese fans enjoyed this one anyway.
Yeah, and I want to ask Mike a question. Mike, are you along the same belief as me, or what's your opinion? How far can Inoue go, and how will he be remembered later? Like, what's the limit for this guy?
I think that's $1 million question, and I think that I've always talked about this, that fighters that dip while they're still active get underappreciated, and it takes about a 5 to 10 year cycle before the appreciation returns. And we're currently seeing that with Roy Jones. So, I mean, it's a complex question because Inoue could dare to be great and go up maybe 2 more weights. He's going to be grossly undersized at featherweight, and if he doesn't catch the right opponent there, he's going to get beat. That's a reality. But if you're around him, how do you know what your limits are? He's cleaned out multiple weight classes. So, he's going to seek out the biggest and best challenges. Right now, I think if you went to 122, you'd favour him over Stephen Fulton. But again, it's not really a huge legacy fight, even though it'd be for a unified version of the world title. It's still not a huge legacy fight. But I think that's what's so exciting about Inoue is that we all see what the potential is there. But whether he's going to keep chasing more glory and more legacy in different weight classes still waits to be seen. And that's why I think that, just taking a step back when we look within this era and see what Pacquiao achieved, and then in a tougher era prior to that, what Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, Duran, what those fighters achieved, I think that's why when we historically look at what they accomplished, we've got to admire and respect and place them accordingly.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, do you think it's? I was just going to say, Tassie, it's a bit of a shame that maybe Rigondeaux wasn't still around. I mean, I know he's still around, but at his peak, because Rigondeaux and INOUE would be a really intriguing fight, I think. What do you reckon?
It would have been at his peak, not now, but yeah, it would have been. And he dared to be great. He went up and fought Lomachenko and didn't have much success there. But I mean, a prime Rigondeaux that schooled in air, that's a hell of a fight. But we're not seeing that now.
No,
I think he's
not.
done. Yeah.
Unfortunately, he hasn't really got that legacy.
And how about Donaire being shut out against Rigondeaux, going out and being destroyed against Axe Walters, and then having another rejuvenation and getting his career back on track and winning all them fights and then giving this guy a tough first fight.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, like Donaire, what about how he just come back from out of nowhere?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. That's why it's hard to kind of stack up what someone's going to achieve or how you historically rate them till their career's concluded. Because right now, even anyone looking at, say, Donaire historically will cite the fact that he just got blasted by INOUE. Whereas, maybe in 5 years' time, people look at it and say, well past prime, he was able to win multiple world titles, gave INOUE the absolute hardest fight of his career, shattered INOUE's orbital bone, and then that kind of elevates the way that Donaire's perceived as well.
No, very good discussion there, guys, and a great tip or fight pick this week from you, Tassie. Now, it's back to me next week. Now, what I'm going to say, sometimes we get a little bit too serious on this, and we go for the, we pick the easy, low-hanging fruit, the great fighters against each other, and that's great. But every now and then, you've just got to pick a fun fight. So I've picked one this week. We're going to the heavyweight division. And by no means do I pretend these guys are great, but I just think it would be an interesting fight at heavyweight. I'm talking of the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder, up against James Bone Crusher Smith. So purely for entertainment purposes, I think it would be a great fight. Two of the biggest punches we've had. What do you think, Mike?
When you said low-hanging fruit, and then you said you're going for a fun fight, I was worried for a second you were going to come out with Butterbean against Paul Gallen. So I'm glad that we at least have something to discuss next week. But that's an interesting fight, because if you gauge both guys by their absolute peak, what they've accomplished is very, very similar. So yeah, it's one that's going to get me thinking of, because again, James Smith, you bring up his record and you see the losses kind of stacked up mainly towards the tail end. I know he caught a few early losses, but if you see the ones towards the tail end, it's easy to underestimate him, or even if you just gauge him off Tyson. But if you look at the version of him that fought Larry Holmes, come back and knocked out Witherspoon in the round, absorbed everything Frank Bruno had to throw, and stopped him late, it kind of gives you a different context. So it's an interesting fight to weigh up.
It's a fun fight. As I said, like, you guys have had some great fights everyone's had some great fights over the last few weeks. But as I said, sometimes you just need a fun fight to have a look. I almost went for, I will say, for another fun fight. Or maybe I'll bring it out down the track. It was like an Iran, the Blade Barkley against a John Mugabe or something like that. Just a fun fight where they're not great, so they're not fantastic fighters. And especially in this case, Wilder and Bone Crusher, very, very similar fighters. Not much in the skills department, but on the day, they could pretty much iron anyone out. So I think it would be just a really good, entertaining fight. What do you think, Tassie?
I thought you was going to have Wade Ryan versus Dennis Hogan.
Well, they've already fought, but anyway. Well, as I said, sometimes it's not about just the greats against each other. It's just what would be a really, really good fight. So Bone Crusher Smith against Deontay Wilder.
I'm up for any fight, Lynn, as long as it's not Barry McGregor versus Jeff Fennick. That's just the worst all-time ever.
You're never going to live that down. That's in the Hall of Fame there, Mike, that one.
Next time we do Fennick, it's got to be INOUE versus Fennick at bantamweight.
Or Salvador Sanchez or someone.
I'm not available that segment.
What about Salvador Sanchez, Tassie? Would you be around for that one? That'd be a tough one too.
Can't go against Jeff or Costa Zoo, sorry.
Yeah. Actually, we haven't had Costa on for a while. We might have to bring him back. Who haven't we had him against? We'll have to put him in. Maybe a Floyd
He's bashed
Mayweather or
everyone.
someone.
He bashed Pacquiao, bashed Oscar. He's given to them all.
Chavez, we had him against Chavez, I think, didn't we, at
He
one
beat
stage?
Chavez. He beat him in
Well,
real life.
he beat.
Oh, sorry,
the
he did
ghost of
too. Oh,
Chavez.
come on. We can't judge him on that. That was the faded. Not to say he would
beat-
beat him in his prime, but that was the 2000 version of Chavez. We can't really go that far.
Yeah, exactly. Kosh is one of the greatest ever, but you can't really give him much credit for that victory when you know what version of Chavez that was.
He beats all
I give
your
him
boys
I
in
give
one
him
put out.
I give him credit for Shambe Mitchell twice. I give him credit for Zab Judah, Miguel Angel Gonzalez. They're great wins. On the way up, all the ex-champions he rolled, great victories. Chavez, no, they knew what they ordered.
He
Well,
beats anyone you can throw at him.
I wouldn't argue, but I'm
Shane
sure we'll
Mosley?
think of someone.
Shay Mosley?
Yeah, you can beat Shane.
I'll tell you what we're going
That's
to
a
do,
great
guys.
point,
We're going to
mate.
do something a little bit different in the future episodes.
1 second, Linda. Sorry, let me finish
Yeah.
this one. Didn't Shane skip super lightweight? Never fought there.
You did?
Yeah, he went straight to 147. Yeah.
We can't have the convo. Can't have the convo.
I'll tell you what we're going to do, guys. We're going to have a standalone show, whether it's in place of this one or Classic Fights. Maybe Classic Fights is a good one. I done it on my Talking Boxing show a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to do it. Maybe we'll do one episode for each. It's your 5 favourite fights of all time. Not the favourite fighters, the favourite fights. So we're going to go through them and you can explain why. So maybe we'll keep it for Classic Fights. So we might do that in the future as well. Your 5 favourite fights of all time. So start thinking
Done.
about that, boys. All right, well, that's dream fights for this week. As I said, next week's Deontay Wilder against Bone Crusher Smith. Tazzy, great choice this week, mate, and we'll see you next week.